You want to start a smart home in 2023 and you don't even know where to start from. Trust me, I understand this struggle. Now, that's because there's so many products out there, so many different ecosystems, so many different technologies out there. And I understand it can be very daunting trying to figure out what to choose or where to even begin from. I will be giving you some of the basic foundation or starting your smart home. And you can, if you apply this basic foundation, you can start building your smart home using those basic building blocks. First things first, we need to decide what type of user you are. Now, I categorize them into 3 different groups. This is my personal categorization. The first group is the noob. The noob is essentially the group that doesn't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to have to mess around with, installing stuff, configuring stuff, and setting up stuff. They basically want to skip all that process and just want a simple plug and play solution. If you're in this group, fear not as well. The benefit of this group is that they don't have to spend all their time or waste time setting up and figuring out stuff. You just need to set it up one time and forget about it. But the downside is you have to be willing to spend a whole lot more money. If you want convenience and ease of setup, then you have to be willing to spend the money. Another thing is that you have to upgrade your products much frequently, because the moment support is dropped for that product, then you're out of options. You have to upgrade that product because you don't want to get your hands dirty. Group number 2 is what I call the extremes. Now, this group, literally, they are professionals. This is all they do day in, day out. They either do this for work or some sort of component of it as their work and lifestyle, or they do this 100% full time. Now, this group is going to save the most money because they are able to custom build their own products, right? They can 3D print their circuit boards, they custom write their own scripts, and they can even custom flash many of these off-the-shelf solutions to their own software. Now, this group will save the most money and be able to use their products much longer and probably even get much more functionality out of those products and make it much more personalized to their own taste. But the problem is that you spend a whole lot more time doing this and you require a significant amount of technical expertise to be able to be in this group. And then there's the third group, which is the tighter group, essentially the me group. This me group actually takes a little bit of the newbie and a little bit of the extreme groups. We don't like to spend our entire living, breathing moments working and programming and writing scripts about smart home stuff. And I also don't want to spend all of my time 3D printing or creating circuit boards. Not that we can't do it, but we choose not to do it. We want to be able to use our product as long as possible, but not till the end of time. But at the same time, we don't want to spend so much money that we have to replace this equipment every single time. In this group as well, we're willing to get our hands dirty. We're willing to understand the technology. We're willing to go to the communities and kind of use this to solve our own problems. We take a lot of the code that have been written by some of these extreme groups, we use it and tweak it to solve our own very specific problem. We're also okay with it not working 100% of the time. Now, one thing I was mentioning is that you can kind of pivot through each of these 3 groups. A newbie can advance to the tight group, and then the tight group can also move into the extreme group. Moving on to step 2. Step 2 is where you choose a hub. And when I mean hub, it has to be a vendor-centric hub. There are 3 big players in this game. We have the Apples, the Googles, and the Alexas or Amazons of the world. So essentially, if you're going Apple route, get yourself an HomePod. If you're going the Google route, get yourself a Google speaker. And if you're going the Amazon Alexa route, then get yourself an Echo speaker. Now, these speakers or assistants will act as your primary interface and your primary control for your entire smart home. This is where you're going to be able to control all of your devices. You want to be able to control it by voice. You want to be able to control it by software. So basically interface with the buttons as well. For the noobs, you just choose one of these 3 ecosystems and you stick with that all the way. No deviating from it. If you decide you want to go the Apple route, buy yourself the HomePod Mini, and when you go into the store, make sure you look for products that actually say works with HomeKit or works with Apple. If you go with Amazon, make sure you do the same as well, because the moment you do that and you stick with products that work natively with those devices, you're going to have fewer issues, and it's going to be a one-time, very easy plug and play setup. But the problem is, once it drops support, like I said earlier on, now you're going to have to replace that product. Once you've chosen one of the 3 mentioned, noobs, this is where your process ends. You choose one, walk away. For the ties and the pros, then we move on to step 2, which is essentially choosing a non-vendor centric hub. Now this is the part where you have the opportunity to choose the hub that has the most compatibility options. So when I mean compatibility, in the sense that you can have a hub that supports Z-Wave, Zigbee, Bluetooth, RF. There's just so much possibility in this area. You need to make sure it is an open source software, preferably. I mean, there are also non-open source ones, but the key is open source. In this market, you have the Home Assistant, you have Homebridge, you have Scripted. Then you also have the non-open source ones like Smarthome, you have Orbitat, and you have Oops. There are a couple of other ones in the market out there as well. So many other options in the market, but these are the top ones that I have personally used, and they work reasonably well. For a noob, here is an opportunity for you to further expand your system if you wanted to. Now, for example, I set up HomeKit for my aunt recently. She is what I would classify a noob. She doesn't want to have to set up anything or mess around with any configuration. I set it up with the Apple ecosystem. However, a garage door opener, which is the MyQ Chamberlain garage door opener, doesn't natively support HomeKit. In this case, I deployed an Homebridge on a Raspberry Pi just for that one specific purpose, to integrate the garage door into HomeKit. In my case, I also have something similar. I use Home Assistant because I feel Home Assistant is the most well-rounded and most robust of all this ecosystem. You can integrate it with so many different ecosystems, so many different products. You can also install it on so many different hardware. Raspberry Pi, you can install it on a server box, you can install it in a Docker. Just the policy, you can do so much with it. But the problem is, with so much power comes so much responsibility. Home Assistant comes with so many different components that if you don't know what you're doing, you could really break stuff as well. I also have Scripted running in my home because I use it to interface my cameras into HomeKit. I do this for one specific reason. I find out that Scripted is more reliable than Home Assistant in my own setup. Also, another need is that it actually addresses a redundancy problem for me. Home Assistant is installed on my Raspberry Pi, while Scripted is installed on my server. If my Raspberry Pi dies or something happens, software update, I still have access to my cameras. If my server goes down, I can still access my cameras using Home Assistant. Always think of redundancy. Whatever solution you're thinking of trying to choose, make sure you have like a backup plan, so when things go down, you are not left completely in the dark. Once you've determined what type of user you want to be, chosen the vendor-centric hub you want to go with, and then for the third group, choosing your vendor-neutral hub. The fourth option is to go out and go and start shopping. Make sure that you take a couple of things into consideration. First, you need to make sure you have a very good Wi-Fi coverage in your house, because especially if you're a newbie, a lot of the products you're going to be buying is going to be mostly Wi-Fi based. And the more Wi-Fi devices you have on your network, the more congestion you could possibly have. So make sure you also set up a dedicated 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi spectrum in your home just for your smart or IoT devices, because all of these IoT devices will still use 2.4. You're not going to see 5 on most of them right now, because first of all, 2.4 has the longest range, and it is the cheapest in terms of the chipset. So it's cheaper for manufacturers to use that in some of these smart devices right now and keep the cost low, because there's literally no benefit to them using 5 gigahertz, because these devices literally only transmit very, very small data across the network. So 2.4 suffices for them. So if you want to get the best experience, set up a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi dedicated for IoT on your network. For the ties, make sure that you stick with a lot of the Z-Wave and Zigbee devices first. And then once you can't get any of those, then you can fall into the Wi-Fi segment. I have switches that are from companies that have gone defunct. The switch I use for my deck bulb right now is from a company called Tapt. That's T-A-P-T. Now, this company went defunct many, many years ago, but I'm still using that switch up until today. I moved it when I was living in my parents' house. I had the same switch. When I moved out, I took out my switch, moved it into my own house when I bought my own place, installed the switch in there, and I'm still using it till today. And when I move out of here again, I'm taking my switch with me, and I'm going to be using it. Now, that's because this switch uses Z-Wave, and Z-Wave doesn't depend on the manufacturer. You can write custom scripts and custom code for it and still get it to keep running. But a lot of cloud connected devices, for example, would just die if the company goes defunct. For example, if you say, so look at what happened to Sonos, for example. They decided to stop support for it, or even Google, when they decided to stop support for those their wireless access points or their router, that the product automatically becomes useless because it 100% depends on the cloud. So make sure you choose products that are local and don't have 100% dependence on cloud. Cloud means that you don't have control over any of those data. The companies do, and when they go defunct or something goes wrong, you don't have access to it anymore. So stick with local options. I'm just gonna call it right there because there's so much I could keep talking more and more and more. And a lot of this concept I've kind of just glossed over them. If you'd like to see more, like to know more about specific, products or specific item I've mentioned here, let me know down in the comment section, and maybe I can make a video on maybe even setting up or even just giving basic understanding about those products. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.